Every single week across the United Kingdom, from busy London flats to quiet family kitchens in Yorkshire, millions of families sit down to what feels like one of the most comforting meals imaginable. A homemade steak, an ale pie, golden pastry cracking open, stem rising, thick gravy spilling onto mashed potatoes. It feels traditional, it feels British, it feels safe. But what if I told you that behind that golden crust, behind those words like premium, finest, and taste the difference, there's a story the supermarkets would rather you never hear? Because recently, 10 varieties from one of Britain's best-known premium pie brands were pulled from the shelves of Asda, Sainsbury's and Tesco, not because of a minor spelling mistake, not because of damaged packaging. They were pulled because the use-by date printed on the box was wrong by an entire year, a full 365 days. The UK's Food Standards Agency issued a warning that those products were not safe to eat beyond the intended date. The company described it as a technical issue. But let's slow down and really think about that. Somewhere in that supply chain, a decision was made. A system failed or a check was missed that allowed a date to be printed 12 months beyond the true safety window. And if a brand that markets itself as ethical, artisanal, and premium can miss something that fundamental, what else is slipping through unnoticed? Let's start with the brand at the centre of that recall, Prime Minister. If you've walked through a supermarket chiller aisle in the UK, you've seen their boxes, bold typography, claims of British beef, free-range chicken, heritage roots in Bristol. It feels like the ethical choice. It feels like you're stepping up from the bargain bin to something crafted with care. But 10 varieties, including customer favourites like Moo and Kate and steak and kidney options, were labelled with a use-by date of June 2026 when the correct date was June 2025. That's not a typo you make lightly. That's not a one-digit slip. That's a systemic failure. And while the company apologised, the bigger question remains: how robust is the quality control process if a full-year error can pass through printing, packaging, distribution, and onto major supermarket shelves without being caught? Food safety dates exist for a reason. They're not marketing fluff. They're based on microbiological risk, shelf life testing, and legal compliance. When that date is wrong, the entire safety framework collapses. If you can't trust the calendar on the box, can you fully trust what's inside it? And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because once one premium brand stumbles publicly, it forces us to look wider at the entire UK pie market. This is an industry worth hundreds of millions of pounds annually. It's competitive. It's squeezed by rising beef prices, higher energy costs, packaging inflation, and supermarket pressure to keep prices attractive. When margins tighten, something has to give. And often what gives isn't the glossy branding, it's the ingredient list. Take Bird's Bakery, a Midlands institution that has been around for over a century. Generations grew up with their pork pies as the gold standard. For many families, it wasn't just food, it was tradition. But recently, loyal customers began voicing frustration. They claimed the pastry had grown thicker. The jelly layer, once a proud hallmark of a proper pork pie, seemed thinner or missing. The meat appeared drier, paler, less seasoned. One long-time customer reportedly bought a large pork pie for nearly £6, took 2 bites, and threw the rest away in disappointment. The company insisted the recipe had not changed since 1919. But here's the key distinction people often miss. A recipe can remain technically the same, while ingredient sourcing changes dramatically. If you swap suppliers, if you use leaner lower-grade cuts, if you adjust fat ratios, if you standardize production at scale, the written formula may remain identical, yet the experience shifts. Consumers notice texture, They notice seasoning. They notice when something that once felt indulgent now feels engineered. Then there's the supermarket premium ranges like Sainsbury's Taste the Difference. The branding promises quality, higher standards, better ingredients. But turn the box over and read carefully. You'll often find fortified wheat flour listed prominently along with yeast extract. Yeast extract is not inherently harmful. It's widely used to boost savoury flavour. But it allows manufacturers to enhance perceived meatiness without increasing actual meat content. It amplifies umami. It creates depth. It tricks your palate into thinking there's more beef than there truly is. And when you're paying a premium price, that distinction matters. If you believe you're paying for steak, you should be eating steak, not flavour engineering designed to stretch margins. Asda's Extra Special and Butcher's Selection ranges offer another case study. On the surface, the packaging communicates craft and quality, but look closely at the ingredients of many of their steak pies, and you'll find rusk. Rusk is essentially dried breadcrumbs. It absorbs moisture, it bulks out mixtures, it's commonly used in sausages. In moderation, it's a functional ingredient. But when used extensively, it reduces the proportion of meat while maintaining structure and weight. That means you're paying meat prices for a product partially padded with carbohydrates. In a cost of living crisis, families are trying to stretch budgets. They reach for what appears to be good value. But if both the pastry and the filling contain flour-based extenders, how much of that pie is actually protein? Morrison's presents an interesting psychological case. They operate in-store butcher counters. They promote Market Street freshness. That branding builds trust. It creates an impression that meat products throughout the store benefit from butcher-level oversight. But most packaged pies on shelves are produced in centralised factories. For example, some steak pies in their premium ranges list beef content at around 32%. That means roughly 2/3 of the product consists of gravy, pastry, water, flour, and other components. Now, gravy isn't inherently bad. A good pie needs sauce, but when marketing imagery shows generous chunks of beef, consumers often assume meat is the dominant component. Percentages tell a different story. Nostalgia is another powerful marketing tool. Hollands is a beloved northern name. Many remember their steak and kidney puddings from childhood, but ingredient lists show beef percentages sometimes hovering around the mid-20s, with water often appearing before beef in the list. Ingredient order matters. In UK labelling law, ingredients are listed in descending order by weight. If water is first, that means water is the largest single component. Again, gravy requires moisture, but branding rarely highlights that fact. This isn't about demonizing every manufacturer. Food production at scale is complex. It involves safety standards, shelf life science, and price pressures from retailers. But transparency matters. When premium imagery meets low meat percentages, trust erodes. When a use-by date is wrong by a year, alarm bells ring. So what does better look like? Smaller producers like Lishman's of Ilkley focus heavily on sourcing and high meat ratios. They've earned recognition in Great Taste Awards over multiple years. Their pies typically list high percentages of meat, real butter in pastry, and clear sourcing statements. They cost more, often £5 to £6, but ingredient density reflects that price. Alternatively, many independent butchers across the UK craft pork pies with meat content exceeding 90%, real stock jelly, and lard-based pastry. These products may not have glossy supermarket packaging. For consumers, protection begins with literacy. Turn the pack over, look for the meat percentage. If it's under 30% in a steak pie, understand that most of what you're eating isn't steak. Scan for rusk or textured vegetable protein. TVP is soy-based and widely used as a filler. It's not harmful, but it changes what you're buying. Check ingredient order. If water appears first, moisture outweighs meat. Examine origin statements. Produced in the UK does not necessarily mean the beef was reared in the UK. It may simply mean assembled or packaged domestically. Price can also serve as a rough indicator. Beef prices fluctuate, but high-quality cuts suitable for slow cooking are not cheap. Butter is more expensive than palm oil. If a steak pie costs less than a pint of milk, critical thinking is justified. Economics rarely bend without consequence. The UK pie market thrives on comfort and tradition. It taps into heritage narratives, Sunday dinners, and family rituals. That emotional connection can overshadow scrutiny. Yet recalls like the one flagged by the Food Standards Agency remind us that vigilance matters. Labelling errors are rare but serious. Ingredient engineering is legal but can feel misleading when branding implies something richer than reality. Ultimately, this investigation isn't about fear, it's about awareness. When you place a pie in your trolley at Tesco or Asda, you're trusting that what's promised on the front matches what's delivered inside. If you've ever cut into a pie and felt underwhelmed by the filling, now you know why percentages matter. The power ultimately sits with shoppers. Brands respond to demand. When consumers reward transparency and higher meat content, the market shifts. So next time you hear the crisp crack of pastry under your fork, take a second before that first bite. Flip the box. Read the numbers. Decide whether the story on the front aligns with the reality on the back. Because once you start paying attention, you see the difference. And when enough people see it, the industry has no choice but to raise its game.